Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we prepare our flex students. And this again applies to the yes countries where we recruit as well. So first off, oh, hold on. There we go. So after students are notified that they're finalists and they've been offered their flex scholarship and accepted, we hope, then we have a notification meeting. And again, typically that's in person. And this year that will be occurring through the end of April and into May as we notify finalists. And the notification meeting is for finalists. It's also for alternates who are selected and their natural parents for both. And this is an opportunity. This is conducted by our Flex staff, our in-country staff, as well as Flex alumni are present during that. And the goals of the notification meeting are to begin preparing them, give them more information about the program, although we do give the students a lot of information about the program throughout the recruitment process so that they're informed about what it entails and what the expectations are, but we get even more into that. It's also an opportunity for the natural parents and their children to start building relationships with our staff, who will be the ones in communication with them throughout the process. And while the students are overseas, we'll be the ones that hopefully the natural parents are communicating with if they have any questions or concerns. Also, setting expectations for what the program is about and what's expected of them. There is some document collection, such as immunizations. There might be other health documents we're collecting at that point. Normally at the in-person notification meeting, it's also an opportunity for us to retest students who need retesting on the LTIS for the language assessment. And it's a chance for everyone to ask questions and for us to respond and again, give them more information. Also at the notification meeting, that's when parents get their own handbook, again, to help answer questions and provide information about what they can expect while their son or daughter is in the United States. And also the students get their handbook that they will also use at PDO, at the pre-departure orientation, and then are also encouraged to bring with them to the United States as a reference tool as well there. And there's just a list of all the various things covered in the handbook. So the pre-departure orientation, normally it takes place 4 to 6 weeks prior to the students going to the United States. It's taught by trained staff, both permanent staff and trained staff, sometimes referred or Peace Corps volunteers in that country, and then also Flex alumni. And the sessions are taught in teams of a native speaker or an American and a host country national. Usually a Flex alum. It's 12 interactive sessions plus an exam at the end. There's a Flex Alumni Panel, which I'll touch on a little bit more later on. Also, students get some International Education Week preparation. At PDO, they usually will present on their city because they're presenting to other students from their country, but to give them a taste of what that will be like. And then there are also other sessions about safety and travel. And then usually in-person PDO is also the time when the students go to the embassy or consulate with our staff for their visa interviews. So what is new? So this year we have updated the Intro to the USA workbook that the students are getting. Because of the pandemic and those restrictions, a lot of the material will be covered asynchronous, but there will also be synchronous portions for learning. So some students will learn some things on their own through watching a video, and then they'll also meet up live through online with staff and go over material that way as well, and have a chance to ask questions and interact that way. There will be virtual breakout sessions as well, covering some other information, and then some interactive sessions as possible at Gateway. And Gateway is basically, it's the city where the students are departing from. So at the time when they're departing to come to the United States, there will be some opportunity for in-person sessions, such as there'll be an in-person breakout boy-girl breakout session to cover things like sexual harassment, that we think would be better covered in person as opposed to in a virtual setting. Here's just a list of the PDO sessions. I will not talk about all of these, but mention some of them throughout the next few slides. One thing I wanted to touch on is the first session, we introduced students to the concept of tools for success. And during PDO, one of the things we do is the students have a toolbox, and each session, at the end of each session, they get a couple of tools, one or two tools to put in their toolbox. And the idea is that that is a toolbox that they can take with them to the United States that will help them throughout their exchange year. And I'll give you some idea of some of those tools later on. We also introduce in session 2 the idea of red flags and green light issues, which I'll get into a little bit more. And I'll also touch on you and your host family, session 6 and 11 on friendships. So, and I believe the picture you see there is from session 6, you and your host family. Or I'm sorry, that's from Culture and American Values. So red flag issues are issues that many students face when adapting to life in the United States. So a lot of students will encounter something related to these. So these are issues that we highlight at the beginning, but we also reinforce and bring them up throughout the sessions. So throughout the 12 sessions, these will repeatedly be brought up. And you can see what they are there. And see. And then to counterbalance the red flag issues, we've also introduced green light issues. And the idea of that is to rather, we don't want to solely focus on red light and sort of warning issues, but also talk to students about kind of broadening their perspective and giving them some positive, introducing in a positive way some other things for them to be open with that they might encounter, such as life in small towns. You see information about places of worship in the United States and some of the differences students will encounter while on program, the idea of a double placement, and then also dogs. And these green light issues were based on some one-pager documents, which you see here, that we had developed a few years ago, again, to give students more information about some of these things that they will commonly encounter or may encounter. Certainly small town life, because we do talk to students about the majority of flex students and yes students are placed in smaller towns and rural areas. Okay, so getting back to the tools, some of the tools that we share with students during the sessions are, for example, rights and privileges, and a conversation with them about, what are they entitled to? What is a right that the program provides to them, and what are some things that are privileges that are, and sort of setting those expectations. Talking to them about the adjustment cycle so that they are familiar with what that is, and will hopefully recognize some of that as they're experiencing it. I think it always helps to have a foundation of understanding of what that will look like for when you're in it, and it will help you recognize that and remember some of what you can do. This idea that things are not better or not worse in the United States, they're just different. That is something that I think maybe some of you have heard your flex student repeat. That is one that it's a popular one that they like to share and say. And it's not just about comparing cultures, but also comparing experiences. And that's something we talk to students about, not comparing your experience with your friend's experience in another state or in another town, and that what they're seeing someone else do is not necessarily better or worse. It's just different from what their experience is, and that they will each have their own unique experience. Two other popular tools are Top Hat, which some of you may have heard me talk about previously. And then also the acronym FRIEND. Top Hat, very quickly, is talk, obey, participate, help, affection, trust. Talk, the idea that it's important to communicate with your host family. Obey, this idea that there are rules and laws in the United States that will be new to them, and certainly in their host family there'll be rules and expectations that they're expected to follow. The importance of participating in host family life. Help, this idea that you should be asking to help your host family and taking some initiative with that and not waiting to be asked. The importance of showing affection and saying thank you and those sorts of things. And also trusting that your host family, your host parents, they are natives to the culture that you're in as an exchange student, and they are, and that, that they have your best interest in mind for giving advice. And then FRIEND, of course, is an acronym to help students think about how to approach making friends in the United States. Taking initiative, the first step, reaching out to others, inviting others to do things with you. Expect that it's not going to be easy, that it may take some time to make friends, and you may have to go to different places to meet other people, and it's not going to happen immediately. To be natural, to be yourself, and then also the importance of doing things and being involved and participating. So one thing that isn't necessarily standard across all pre-departure orientations, but it is something that some of our Ukrainian PDOs have done, and it takes different forms across countries, but American Food Day. And Tanya, I don't know if you'd like to say anything about what's happening here.
Sure. So food is the issue that we covered several sessions, and it's also one of the red flag issues. So in Ukraine, we've decided that we'll just do kind of a surprise day when we eat American food. So for example, for breakfast, we would give kids, instead of a warm breakfast that we eat in Ukraine, they would get, for example, milk and cereal and orange juice, and they'll make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And this is usually the first time the kids try peanut butter, and they're very confused, and it's a really fun activity. And most of them don't like it, the peanut butter. Then for lunch, instead of a warm lunch, we learn how to make, so if Brian goes back, you'll see how we are creating the brown bag lunch. We actually have a brown bag that the kids put their sandwich together, then they take like a little juice and apple, and then we all go outside and sit on the grass and pretend it's like an American lunch break. And then for evening, they get pizza. And then the next day, we ask them if they've noticed how food was different, and we briefly talk about this and emphasize that in US, probably the food will also be different, and just talk about how they feel about it. And on the first slide before that, there were the cupcakes. And it's just like a special treat we do at the very end of PDOs, and the kids usually enjoy it. So.
Okay, and then finally, one of the last things we do at pre-departure orientation is an alumni panel, where we have a panel of several alumni from past years that talk about a range of issues. Each of them will talk about a different issue, such as volunteering, small town life, gender roles, and they'll relate that to their own personal experience as well. And that is a conversation that it's also a Q&A, so it's an opportunity for participants at PDO to ask alumni questions, but that is also a conversation that is facilitated by American Council's staff to also bring a program perspective as well to anything that the alumni might share about their personal experience. And here is another picture of the alumni panel, you can see. Okay, and then hopefully at the end of PDO and at the end of that, students are ready to go to U and for their year in the United States.